It's been a long while since I've felt inspired enough to hit the record button and start spewing a bunch of jargon and rants about cones and other perk mechanics. But I'm here today because my last video, which I said Waking Vigil is better than Palindrome, kind of inspired me to do this, and with a lot of the comments that I've received. A major point of that video to me was to challenge the norm or status quo of what we feel is good on hand cannons, the stats and perks that are most valuable. I tried to articulate this by taking the Waking Vigil being a weapon that most people immediately disregard and think is very bad, and compare it to the current best, which is the Palindrome. I authentically believe I perform well with the Waking Vigil. I love it for the reasons that I mentioned, and I think that it actually has a lot of value because of the things I mentioned in that video. For those of you that may not have liked that I outright just said, hey, this is better than Palindrome in the title, I apologize, I suppose. I got some comments about this, but I want to mention that engagement is always going to be an aspect of YouTube and content creation, unfortunately, and it's one that I'm kind of just becoming okay with saying, yeah, this is the way YouTube is, and I gotta play the game, because I do this full time and I am trying to get growth in this, and I am trying to continue doing it full time because I love this and I enjoy this. Although I don't particularly think I'm great at this, I try my best to maximize my growth on the channel, although it'll never be the main deciding factor of this channel. And YouTube right now, the meta game, I guess you could say, is kind of just really definitive inflammatory titles. So really, I mean it. I'm sorry about that if you didn't like that, and I try and improve my quality in the video as much as possible while trying to play around what is essentially the quote-unquote YouTube game. Well, since we got that out of the way, basically when looking at all the hand cannons and asking myself, what do I really value most, I landed on Waking Vigil and the energy slot. There's quite a few hand cannons I like in the energy slot, but I landed on Waking Vigil, and I thought to myself, what is really most important to me on a hand cannon? Is it just big range stat, go burr, like range matters most, maximum distance all the time for engagements, all the stuff that range brings? Is that truly just the best, or is it a mix of a bunch of things? And things like opening shot, which give you a crazy set of boosts that I think are uber impactful on a high level. Could that be better? Could it be better to have a more wide series of benefits on a weapon rather than just dumping it all in on one? And that's kind of what I thought of, and again, I landed personally on Waking Vigil, and when I use Waking Vigil, I feel personally a lot better than when I'm using Palindrome. I saw many comments talking about the low stat package of Waking Vigil and how, of course, compared to a stat beast like Palindrome, it's just, you know, not as good, and you guys talked about the benefits, of course, of each of the stats and why they're important, which I am aware of, but I wanted to go over each of them and really challenge what's good and maybe where we're overvaluing some stats. Range is the first and main one that I want to talk about. I think that a lot of people put a lot of weight into the range stat on hand cannons, and while I have talked about why it's important in the past and why I agree it's very, very good, I think right now in our kind of hand cannon perk stat meta game, if you will, I think it's being overvalued. My current thought process is, could there be a range value that's effective and competitive enough that allows us to focus on other good traits that certain weapons have, like perks, or just other stats in general? Or perhaps not limit us to just, hey, this one hand cannon is just the best simply because it has the best engagement ranges. As we all know, of course, range dictates the damage we can deal at range and alters our damage fall off start and end, where we start receiving damage fall off. And for a lot of people, that's like the main functionality. A lot of people seem to believe, I feel, that you need higher range or the highest range at all times to be able to compete with a hand cannon. My mindset with this and why I don't necessarily agree, like I'm not going to say no to more range, but why I don't necessarily put so much value into this is because I feel if you're not in your effective range, that's like the difference between you and another hand cannon, let's say the 36 meters of Palindrome versus let's say the 32 of Waking Vigil. If you're not utilizing, if you're not standing within that 4 meters extra range, and if you're anywhere within 32 meters, your extra range is not doing anything. Your extra engagement range that you've spec'd into is not doing anything. and that's only 4 meters, which I'm not going to downplay, but at the same time, I believe the majority of engagements on Destiny maps are actually pretty close range, and those further obvious longer lanes or ranges in general, you generally, at least when I'm playing, I see that and know that I'm not going to be effective with a hand cannon at that range, or I know when I'm not going to be able to 3-tap. Furthermore, when you're using a hand cannon that has lower range, let's say, or moderate range, you can look at your damage numbers and you know when you're able to 3-tap. At least when I'm playing, I know the numbers I need to hit in order to 3-tap. And it's as simple as backing off and knowing what I can or can't challenge based on the shots that I'm hitting and the damage numbers that I'm hitting. So those reasons to me make me realize that you can simply nullify someone's range advantage that they've probably given up other traits for on their weapon simply by just changing the way you kind of play within that 4-meter distance where they have an advantage. It's kind of weird to think about, but when I started thinking this way, I was like, wow, okay, I just have to be a little bit more mindful of my engagement range, look at the numbers that I'm hitting, and again, just not give people their 4-meter advantage, and then their thing that they've spec'd into is kind of just like a lot less useful, or like not useful at all. So for that reason, I started challenging myself to look at other things that could be valuable. There is, however, another functionality of the range stat. Most players, I don't think, prioritize this. I think what they're going for is just, I need the most range possible for my hand cannon so I can 3-tap all the time. But players who are in tune with what the stats do will value this, and I saw comments of this. So range does influence your accuracy cone, which is important because that's consistency. I preach consistency a lot of the time, so range is valuable for this reason. Chris Proctor says that at 0 range, hand cannons have a 0.55 degree accuracy cone, and at 100 range, they have a 0.3 degree accuracy cone. And when you ADS, it's multiplied by 1.2 at 0 range and 0.99 at 100 range. If I've done my math correctly here and I'm understanding this correctly, which hopefully you guys will correct me in the comments if I didn't, it should be a 0.66 degree accuracy cone at 0 range while ADS, and then a 0.297 degree accuracy cone at 100 range while ADS. And if this is linear scaling, which I don't believe it is, but just to throw some numbers around that are relatively meaningless, just to give an idea of how this would work, I predict that at 50 range, you'd have a 0.4785 degree accuracy cone, and then at 70, you'd have something around 0.4059 accuracy cone. But again, those are just like meaningless numbers at this point. He did mention that range is not 1-to-1 with the accuracy increase. Accuracy increase is just a result of the range stat, and it can't be translated as a stat. He mentioned that weapons don't have a hidden accuracy stat, which I was under the impression of, so that corrects me. But the accuracy cone increase, or the benefits to it, is simply just a result of the range stat and can't be translated as such. Chris made no mention of range affecting the accuracy cone growth, and only stated that the higher your range stat, the smaller your accuracy cone will be. He didn't mention that it changes the rate at which it grows when you shoot, which is essentially bloom in the community's terms. And range, as far as we know, does govern aim assist fall off, so how persistent your aim assist is at further ranges essentially. This is, to clarify, not ever higher than the maximum aim assist cone size. This is just keeping your aim assist a bit more persistent over distance. So again, if Waking Vigil, as an example, has 100 aim assist with a targeting mod, and then we have Palindrome with something lower than that, Palindrome is never going to really have higher than its maximum value, which we'll say is what? I think it's 89 or something like that. I don't have the stats in front of me right now to confirm that. So I agree, this is a good reason why range is beneficial, and I'd argue it's more about this than it is actually about the damage drop-off. But again, I think for the majority of players, they see that I need to 3-tap as many scenarios as possible, so therefore I need as much range as possible so I can always 3-tap and snipe people. I think it's the opposite. I really think it's about the accuracy more than anything, because that dictates your consistency. And consistency is the most important thing in a game filled with RNG layers on its gunfights. So while I'm not going to ever argue with someone that says I want more range because I want more accuracy and consistency, I think that is perfectly fair. I think there is a way to maximize on those things without having to dump so heavily into a stat that seems like it has diminishing returns on a hand cannon, especially as far as the effective damage fall off or your engagement range goes. I think that the best value or best range for a hand cannon, to me, that seems serviceable in the majority of scenarios, is 32 meters. I generally don't use a hand cannon at any sort of a competitive level in Destiny that can't 3-tap or hit its optimal time to kill at 32 meters. That's the sweet spot to me. I think the majority of engagements on Destiny maps that you'd look at and perceivably shoot with a hand cannon in, not these crazy obvious long angles that you would probably not want to challenge with a hand cannon in, they're usually around 30-ish meters or so. So I wanted to say 32 meters, considering that you can still 3-tap past that, is kind of the sweet spot for range on hand cannons for me. And to supplement whatever else is missing on the hand cannon, I think that there are perks that we can prioritize that not only supplement and make up for the loss of maybe accuracy from the range stat, but also give us more benefits. There's also the argument of getting a high range stat and getting those perks or other attributes that allow you to maximize on your accuracy, but that's very rare now. The last time that really happened was Not Forgotten and Ostringer. Ostringer was a weapon that could get insanely high range with Eye of the Storm and Opening Shot, two of the highlight perks I'll be mentioning in this video. And, well, that hasn't happened since then, for a good reason, because it's absolutely insane. And Not Forgotten, of course, had its own version of that, being a precision hand cannon while dealing 140 RPM damage after it got nerfed into a 140 RPM, or 150, either one, doesn't matter. The accuracy part of the precision archetype is what stuck with it and made it so strong. I don't disagree though with going, if possible, for high range and high accuracy perks, but even then I think that we want to build to be the most well-rounded as possible rather than going super all into something where we might meet some sort of diminishing returns where it's just not as active, like I kind of mentioned for range. We don't want to hit a point where it's like, well, you know, we got this range, but it's not actually coming up a lot. It's not actually, in all practicality when we're playing, coming up the majority of the time, or there's a way to stop it from getting interaction. I don't think we want that with the weapon, right? Moving on now to stability though, a lot of you guys mentioned, well, stability, you need it. It's low on Waking Vigil. That helps the aim assist cone degrade less while shooting repeatedly, which means you're going to maintain your aim assist cone more while shooting shots one after another, which is true. However, this is never going to exceed the maximum aim assist stat and cone size. It's just going to try and keep it closer to the maximum. So if we have a weapon like Palindrome that has 89 aim assist with one targeting mod, it's never going to get above that. It's going to just try and stay as close to 89 as possible when shooting repeatedly. Versus if we have Waking Vigil with 100 aim assist with one targeting mod is going to have more than that. And maybe Waking Vigil degrading is going to still keep it at a higher level than Palindrome with its aim assist cone degrading, even though it's maintaining a little bit more of it. I think the biggest thing about stability is it's gonna come down to feel, and this works directly with recoil direction, which I'll talk about in a moment. But some people are gonna really love laser beam hand cannons, like maximum stability, laser beam, no recoil hand cannons. And some people aren't gonna mind lower stability hand cannons. Some people are gonna like a certain stability stat simply because it feels right to them. It feels right to the way that they naturally correct for the recoil. So I think this is entirely subjective and something that you kind of just got to figure out for yourself. I've tried some really, really high stability hand cannons, and I gotta say I don't think I like them. It's noticeable seeing them stay on target and be so smooth, but at the same time I feel like when I'm getting flinched or based on the recoil direction with the crosshair making these micro adjustments kind of throws me off. So I like the recoil being a bit higher because I like to pull down on the control stick to kind of compensate for that a little bit. I naturally find I do that, which is actually why I find I don't mind lower stability hand cannons as long as the recoil direction is as vertical as possible, or mainly vertical at the least. Then I really don't mind it. So this is going to really depend on your comfort And I think that's something only you can decide. Now we can talk about my favorite mechanic, which is accuracy, you know, all the cone stuff. So the accuracy cone determines how far off of a target a bullet can fire, and this varies, of course, by weapon archetype, and bows are the only weapons to have an accuracy stat, others don't have a hidden one. The range stat is used to determine the accuracy cone, so the higher the range stat, smaller the accuracy cone. So as explained by Chris Proctor from Bungie once again, the aim assist cone points the accuracy cone towards where you want it to be, so usually towards the target, obviously, and then the shot will go somewhere within the accuracy cone. But if that cone is larger than the target, you have the potential to miss anyways. I'm pretty certain this does go hand in hand with what we already knew in previous knowledge, even though they didn't mention this, that the bullets will bend towards the target as well if fired within the aim assist cone. There's also some key distinctions here that we learn, which is accuracy cone size versus cone growth. Yep, that sounds like something, all right. Well, accuracy cone size is the size of the accuracy cone itself, and then growth is how much it widens after each shot, which is pretty much a bloom is what we call that. And helmet targeting perks or mods are scalars to the accuracy cone and accuracy cone growth. So those are just some notes on accuracy and what exactly it does, and some updates from when Chris Proctor was on the Massive Breakdown podcast, which I didn't actually get to talk about, so here they are. But basically, accuracy is very, very important. It affects essentially that layer of RNG on the weapon, where we want our bullet to go completely straight, but that doesn't actually happen the majority of the time. And the way that we maximize on the likelihood of our bullet going completely straight or within the most confined area possible to where we're aiming is by maximizing the accuracy stat. Obviously, I just spoke about how accuracy ties in with range, and that's the main reason why I think range is valuable and not the damage drop-off, but there are perks in the game that maximize on accuracy. And for me, I started looking at those perks and trying them out and trying to see if they really felt like they were altering or affecting my consistency. To me, I believe they did. You could say it's placebo per se, I guess, but I know that there's a function of these perks that does increase the consistency by increasing accuracy of the weapon. Accuracy is our avenue to minimize RNG and as a result maximize consistency. But to add on, to maximize consistency would mean we need high aim assist as well. I see that there's comments on my video about Waking Vigil saying, well, if you know how to aim, you can just use other stuff as well. I raise the counterpoint of it does not matter how good you are at aiming. Everyone is going to make a mistake at some point. Everyone is human. There is human error at play. The more aim assist you have on a weapon, or the wider aim assist cone, means the less that human error matters. The less the error that you're going to inevitably make at some point, no matter how good you are, will matter. Which means you get to shoot perfectly, which is inhuman, the majority of the time, or more of the time, I should say. So aim assist matters no matter what. We need high accuracy to minimize RNG, and we need high aim assist to maximize on forgiveness and minimize on human error, and you combine these things and this gives you the best consistency possible. The two perks I mentioned earlier, Opening Shot and Eye of the Storm, allow you to maximize on accuracy without having to overinvest or overvalue the range stat, which means you can allocate more to other stats that might be more valuable to you, or at the very least not take away from them. I decided to myself that I'm not going to use a hand cannon without Eye of the Storm or Opening Shot, and in the energy slot, Palindrome doesn't have either of those. Mind you, it does have good stats, which we'll talk about actually how they compare in practice in a moment, but I refuse to use a weapon that does not have Opening Shot or Eye of the Storm, both of which maximize on accuracy without needing a tremendous range stat, just a competitive enough range stat. They have some other really valuable benefits, and they do stack with Icarus to give you better in-air accuracy. This matters both on controller and MNK, but this matters even more on controller, where we're not getting that inherent plus 20% accuracy on mouse and keyboard that they get. So accuracy matters that much more on controller as a whole, which is obviously, being a controller player, why I value these perks so much more and refuse to use a hand cannon that doesn't have them. Opening shot gives you plus 20 aim assist and plus 20 range, which is incredible. It's a 5% scalar to damage fall off on the start and end of that first shot with opening shot, minus 5% on the accuracy cone size, not even just with the range, and minus 10% on accuracy cone growth from that shot to the next one. So your following shot is impacted by opening shot having a smaller accuracy cone and smaller cone growth as well from the first to the second shot. Eye of the Storm starts boosting your accuracy on your weapon starting at half health, but will continue boosting it the lower your health gets. Not only that, but it also boosts handling, which is incredibly important to a lot of high level players because of the swap speed. To put these perks into practice, I decided to shoot my Waking Vigil with opening shot and compared it to shooting my max range palindrome, Adept palindrome, with an Adept Icarus mod, and I paid attention to the crosshairs to look at the aim assist cone and the accuracy cone. Obviously, this is from the hip, so it's not going to be as accurate. It's actually going to be better accuracy from ADSing, so that's important to keep in mind. But to get an idea of these perks in action, I paid attention and I saw that Waking Vigil had both a smaller accuracy cone and wider aim assist cone than Palindrome before and after the first shot, which was opening shot, but leading into the second and third shot, it had slightly higher aim assist as far as I could tell, and the same, or at least not enough of a visible difference to me in the accuracy cone. It wasn't actually until the fourth shot that I saw a noticeable difference in Palindrome's favor as far as accuracy and the aim assist cone staying more persistent. So if you're looking to get 3 taps, even though the Waking Vigil has visibly a lower stat package, that's not telling the full story because of how powerful a perk like opening shot is. I forgot to mention I did test that with 1 targeting mod, as it does only take 1 targeting mod to get Waking Vigil to 100 aim assist. So I've articulated what's most important to me and what I believe is the best. Maximizing on accuracy, aim assist, and getting competitive enough range. I believe Waking Vigil with opening shot and rangefinder, the role I had, has all of this. With opening shot, it gets competitive enough range. It's great for peek shooting and making sure that I can get maximum range out at further distances, and then past that, it still has an extended 3-tap range of about 34-ish to 35-ish meters, which is excellent. That's good enough to me. It gets all the other benefits of the accuracy and affecting following shots with the accuracy cone growth and reducing the accuracy cone size initially. That to me is really important, and that's the way that I'm maximizing on accuracy while not having to invest as much into range. A big benefit to Waking Vigil, of course, is the 100 aim assist with 1 targeting mod. This means I don't have to build into 2 targeting mods like I would have to with something like Palindrome or other hand cannons, and allows me to have some free slots to build into other aspects and stats. The 100 aim assist on Waking Vigil is going to allow me to have a lot more forgiveness, which in turn means consistency for human error. This also matters a lot at close range, where hand cannons get a little bit unforgiving and you have to hit those 3 taps, or ideally want to hit those 3 taps, and this allows me to do so regularly. So Waking Vigil again looks like it has everything that I wanted on it, and as a result, I choose to use it and believe it's better than Palindrome. How much better? I don't know, it's probably debatable. At a given point, I think we're probably nitpicking, and Palindrome is still obviously a very, very good and definitely one of the best hand cannons. But to me, I think Waking Vigil has more value in exactly what I'm looking for, and what I think is valuable the majority of a match in a Destiny 2 game. The last thing I want to mention in this rant is Fatebringer. So Fatebringer was brought up in the comments quite a bit. It's not a fair comparison to Waking Vigil because it's in the kinetic slot, but Fatebringer overall is a hand cannon I was very wrong about. It has comparable stats to Palindrome, it gets explosive rounds for flinch, it has higher aim assist, and it does have access to the Adept mods while having the consistency perks I want and refuse to use a hand cannon without. It has both Eye of the Storm and opening shot, but of course not together. Eye of the Storm might be more valuable, I'm not sure. The way that I'm thinking about it right now is opening shot is better if you value early gunfight and landing the first shot. Eye of the Storm is better if you think that you're fine with that first shot because you already have a high accuracy, but you want to prioritize on late gunfight consistency, so the third and fourth shot onwards. So that's pretty much all my thoughts on hand cannons currently in the meta and what I'm prioritizing. This rant started mainly as a response to the people that I felt were just kind of trying to harp on me in the comments of my Waking Vigil video. So I hope this was sufficient for you folks. And for those of you that just want to listen to my thoughts and watch my videos, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.